What's up, everyone, and welcome to The Well, your source for the latest in the field of after school and summer learning programs. I am your host, Bruno, and today we have a very special guest in Frank Escobar. He is the manager for after school programs in the Visalia Unified School District. What's up, Frank?
What's up, Bruno? Thanks for having me, man. Glad to be here.
Yeah, man, thank you so much for joining us. So, the question of the day is, how'd you get started in after school? What's been your journey like?
Wow. Well, let me tell you, it's been probably the most amazing career journey I've had yet. And I tell you, it's one of those things like, it's so unexpected. It wasn't something that I was actually seeking out or looking for, but it kind of found me, which was quite interesting. And here I am, almost 10 years later, still doing this amazing work. It was funny because right out of college, I took a position with the County Office of Ed here in Visalia and working with high-risk youth. And during my tenure there at the County Office of Ed, I got to know a real common, real popular speaker on the circuit there working with Workforce Investment Act programs.
Yep.
His name is Ed DeJesus, and Ed had his own organization out on the East Coast. And he would come out, he'd do a lot of keynotes for our conferences. He developed some curriculum, some youth development curriculum, stuff like that. And so I actually got a chance to meet him at one of the conferences, and we made a great connection. And soon after, he asked me if I was interested in to come on and do some work for him. And
Nice.
I was like, cool, man, this is right up my alley. So I started doing some training for him and was doing that. And then I don't know, a few months later, he said, I need somebody to run my West Coast operations out there. And I think you'd be a great fit, Frank. Would you come on board? So I had been with the county office for about 8 years, and county office of ed is great. There are no benefit packages better than the county office of ed. So everything was going great, but I thought, you know what? It sounds like my dream job. I don't know that I can afford to pass this up, right?
Right.
So I told Ed, okay, man, I'm gonna take a leap of faith. I'm gonna jump out there, and I'm gonna go out there with it. So I did. And right away, I was off and running, doing some work up in the Bay Area, down in LA, out in Nevada, and things were going well. Until about 6 months in, I get a call from Ed, and he tells me, hey, there's been some legislative change.
Wow.
And it sounds like, or it looks like the contracts are going to run dry on me. He's like, Frank, I apologize, man, but I have no other choice but to let you go. And
Wow.
I'm like, oh, man, you kidding me? Like, this was my dream job. I just left 8 years with the county office,
Right.
full benefits and all that. And I was like, oh, man, what am I going to do? But that's where it got interesting, right?
Yep.
So there I am, unemployed, just bought a house, trying to figure out what my next move is. So I'm starting to apply for some positions here in town. And I've got, my resume floating around. And one of my references was the superintendent of Visalia Unified at the time, Stan Carasosa. And Stan was a good friend of my dad's and a good friend of mine at the time. And so he wrote me a letter of rec. About 2 weeks later, Stan calls me and says, hey, Frank, by any chance, have you taken a job yet? I said, no, Stan, not anything yet. He's like, well, look, I might have something coming down the pike. Could you give me a couple of weeks? And I was like, yeah, Stan, I can give you a couple of weeks. He goes, I might have something for you. Well, sure enough, about 2 weeks later, Stan calls me and is like, hey, Frank, all right, buddy, it's on. I got something for you. Here's what it is. After school programs. And
Nice.
I'm like, okay, sounds good. I'm working with kids. That's what I like to do. But I had never heard of after school programs prior to that. This was in 2005, 2006. And I thought, okay. I said, you know what? I need something. I got to make it happen. Let's do it. So a couple months later, I got on board. And that was my sort of entrance into the after school world.
Right.
Soon after that, I started to get connected with some of the great leaders at the time in the field, some who are still being amazing leaders now, and started to get my feet wet and get get grounded in the field.
Yep.
And that's really how I ended up where I'm at, and program manager of Visalia Unified 9 years later, man, still living the dream.
Hey, man, there's a lot of people that say that, we don't find after school finds us.
Crazy,
right?
man. It's
And
crazy.
there
Yes.
usually is that one champion, that one advocate that believes in you more than we believe in ourselves at that time, and just lets
Yep.
us see our potential so clearly that we start to believe it ourselves. And that's what it's
Absolutely.
about. So, how do you wake up in the morning, Frank? Why do you do what you do? What keeps you going?
Oh, man, I got to tell you, it's sometimes it's a little tough to get up in the morning, especially when you got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old like me, and
Yeah.
sleep doesn't come easy these days. But I'll tell you what it is that drags me out, even on those tough days. I think that I've always had a little bit of that pull inside me to want to help others.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I was born with it or it grew on me in my childhood. I don't know, but I can tell you it's always been that little itch that I've always needed to scratch.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
even going through school, even going through middle school and high school, I can remember times where it was like I want to do something to help somebody. Now I don't know if it's cool, I don't know if I'm gonna get clowned by my buddies because I'm trying to help people out, but I always had it in me, and whether I suppressed it or I let it out, it has always been a part of me.
Yep.
And so I think when after I got out of college and trying to sort of figure out, okay, what's the next step in Frank's life, I knew that I wanted to do something that helped out others, whether it was working in the community. I already knew that I had sort of an affinity for kids, for
Yep.
youth. And so I really felt like that was the route to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so naturally, I was drawn in that direction. And I think, back then, I may not have known it consciously, but subconsciously, I did know that working with young people was my calling in life. It
Nice.
was to take what I learned growing up in the world, to take my experiences and knowing the challenges that I faced as a youngster in the world.
Mm-hmm.
How
Mm-hmm.
can I be a beacon? How can I be a light for some of those kids that may be going through some of those same challenges, maybe that I went through or that my friends were going through.
Right.
And so I just think it was internal, it was intrinsic. It drew me, and it found me. And again, here I am doing this good work. So it's great because my wife, she kind of shakes her head at me like, why are you up at 2 a.m. in the morning, like writing about work?
Right.
Why are we talking about after school programs Saturday afternoon, during lunch?
Why are you doing a keynote on your anniversary every year?
It's like, I got it bad for that one. So I'll never make that mistake doing a work event on my wife's and I anniversary. But I tell you what, that's what gets me up, brother. It just lives and breathes inside me. And it's funny because when I got into the works in my first year, I was getting connected with some of the great leaders in the field. And I remember Cindy Zandes,
Yep.
one of our great pioneers of after school, she told me by phone, she said, Frank, you don't realize this yet, but this will be the hardest job that you'll ever love. And I tell you what, man, that's always stuck with me, and it couldn't be further from it couldn't be more than the truth. Could be
That's
more.
real, man. That's real and that's deep. So I appreciate that. So, what is the one experience that you remember that you take with you all the time that just keeps you moving forward?
Well, that's a tough one because there's quite a few that pop up. I'll tell you one quick story that I think really got me to where I'm at now, 9 years in after school, and particularly with Visalia Unified. Within my first year working in after school at Visalia Unified, um, I got a job offer. I
Hmm.
got a job offer back at the county office of ed, in which I had originally left to
Right.
take what I thought was my dream job at the time, right? And interestingly enough, this new job offer was making about 25 grand more a year
Wow.
than what I was making as program manager after school programs. It was a couple of levels removed from the school site. I was doing a lot of pushing the pin, pointing the finger, telling people where to go, what to do.
Yep.
Much more sort of less intensive, a little bit more laid back kind of managerial position. And I accepted it. a year into my job at Visalia Unified, program manager, I accepted this new job. And I went into my superintendent's office to give him the news. And this was the superintendent that hired me. And when I sat down, he kind of looked at me and he says, "Don't tell me, Frank. Don't tell me." And I was like, "What? What?" He was like, "Don't tell me that TCOE, the County Office of Ed, is taking you back." And I was like, "How did you know that, Stan?" And anyways, and I said, "Yeah." I said, "Stan, it's a position. It pays a little bit more. It's this. I don't know that I can afford to say no." And Stan said, "You know what, Frank? Hey, I'm not going to hold that against you. You got to do what's best for you." He goes, "But just remember, what you have the opportunity to do here at Visalia Unified, I don't know that you'll have that over there.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep that in mind." So that kind of kept with me. The next week, we're in program, and again, I'm in my 2 weeks. I already given my 2 weeks notice. So we're in program. We have a culminating event out at the roller skating rink. All my kids are at the skating rink, and just so happens during the event, I always go out and talk to the kids. How's it going? How's
Right.
it going? All this kind of stuff. I run into this one particular kid. His name is Jamal. And, let's just say that Jamal had quite a few ups and downs at his program site.
Right.
Yeah, you know the kid. And Jamal had, he just, Jamal had more energy than any other kid I had ever seen before. Incredibly talented, gifted young man athletically, but just had way too much energy for everybody else, even his peers. Okay.
Right.
And so as a result, constant, discipline, constant staying on top of Jamal. I had a lot of parent conversation over the year. And I said, "Jamal, I said, look, man, we've had our ups and downs. Our program hasn't been the best for you in some ways, but here you are, the year's almost up. Um, what do you think about the program?" And I expected him to say, "Man, I can't wait to get out of here. This is
Right.
boring, just typical middle school stuff, right?" And he kind of stopped. He kind of looked at me and he's like, "Frank," he goes, "Yeah, I love Pulse." And I'm like, "What? Really? Are you kidding me? You love Pulse?" He goes, "I love Pulse." I was like, "Why?" And he goes, "Well, I get to play sports where I was kicked off the school team, so I get to play
Yep.
sports in the program." And he goes, "But honestly, I love Coach Zariah." I was like, that was one of his staff members. "Coach Zariah." He's like, "Yeah, I love Coach Zariah. She's awesome. She's my best friend." And I was like, "Wow, that's really cool." He goes, "She's the only one that ever really listens to me."
Mm.
And I was like, "Wow." I
Wow.
said, "Well, you have a lot of brothers and sisters, right?" He goes, "Yeah, but they're all younger, and they're just I don't have that kind of relationship with them. My
Right.
mom is always working. My dad's not in the picture." And he was like, "Coach Zariah, she'll listen to me anytime I need to." And he goes, I love her for that. And and I think if it wasn't for getting into this program, I wouldn't have ever met Coach Zariah.
Right.
And I walked away from that conversation 10 minutes and I thought, man, this program is powerful. This program to some of the kids that need it the most, this program is delivering.
Right.
And that was a Friday. That weekend, I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about it. Kept thinking about my decision. Monday morning, I walked back into my superintendent's office and I told him, "Stan, I'm not leaving.
Wow.
My job is not done here at Visalia Unified as program manager of after school, so I'm not leaving." And then I had to go over and tell the superintendent of the county office that I had to renege on the offer, right? And he was great about it. He actually told me of a story where he did kind of the same thing. And again, here I am, 8 years later, still living the dream, running after school programs.
Yep.
But that particular exchange and that particular moment in my journey within the after school field meant all the difference in the world. And from then on, this light's been burning real bright and real heavy, man.
Yeah. Hey, man, thanks for sharing that. So we always talk about youth voice and leadership, and we tend to focus on building safe and caring environments and building relationships. And sometimes it just takes listening to young people and providing that opportunity for them to find voice and be able to share with us what they want and need from us to be able to facilitate for them and with them, more importantly. And so
Absolutely.
I appreciate you sharing that story. So lastly, I'm big on just the self-education piece. How do we move ourselves forward just individually and together as a field? So how do you move yourself forward? What are you reading? What resource do you use? What can you provide to the field as a suggestion for them to go check out?
Well, there's a couple. I think one of the things that I really enjoy paying attention to and being engaged in is TED Talks.
Yep.
So I'm constantly on, TEDx on the website and looking up new TED Talks around whatever topic is
Right.
sort of near and dear to my heart, or whatever topic I might want to present to my staff and be able to, bring that in. So I would say for anybody that's really wanting to be inspired or wanting to help inspire others, the website, TEDx, TED Talk,
Yep.
great place to start. But I want to tell you, I want to share with you and in the audience here a book that I read 3 years ago that has created a significant change, not just in me, but also in the way that we run our programs or the way that we go about running programs. And it ties real heavily to sort of the onset of the continuous quality improvement
Yep.
initiative that we have in our field and the onset of SB 1221 and all that good stuff. The book is out of the Franklin Covey Institute. It
Mm-hmm.
was sort of a collaboration between the two. New York Times bestseller a few years back called The Four Disciplines of Execution,
Nice.
or 4DX for short.
Yep.
And I bought it at the airport, jumping on the plane, and because I needed to read for my trip. And I read it on the way over and read it on the way back. It's a pretty easy read. But what it talked about was about a decade long of research around what was the difference between good organizations and great organizations,
Right.
and what were the determining factors, what were the indicators, or what were the keys to that. And it talks about the four disciplines, is what sort of they uncovered: the discipline of focus, the discipline of leverage, the discipline of engagement, and the
Mm-hmm.
discipline of accountability.
Yep.
And as a result of reading that book, we actually instituted the 4DX model into our after school programs 2.5 years ago. And we have done more in the last 2 years in our program than we had done in the previous six.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Because of integrating this model, the four disciplines of execution. And so I'm eternally grateful that not only the field found me, but that book found me at the airport.
Right.
And and now with the quality standards and the continuous quality improvement cycle and all that coming in, it's fit like a glove
Right.
to help us in that process. So
Great. Thank you for sharing that. And again, all of the resources will be in the description below. And lastly, how do we get a hold of you? Do you have Twitter handle? Email? How do we connect with you?
absolutely. So email fescobar@vusd.org. On demand anytime. But also you can hit me up at Twitter. Anybody can follow me at ASP Evangelist. That's After School Program Evangelist, ASP Evangelist. Quite active on Twitter. So those are the two best places to reach me, and I'd love to reach back.
Great. And we'll put those on the description below as well. Frank, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate this conversation. I appreciate what you do for the field and how you help all of us move forward. So, again, thank you for your time, and we'll check you out next time.
Thank you, Bruno, and thanks for the well.
All right. Take care.